Injecting my son's plasma into my face is the most profound act of fatherly love I can imagine. Bryan Johnson, CEO of Don't Die. Pause for effect.
Wait, what?
No, let it land.
This is a man worth $500 million. He has a team of 30 people who manage his biological outputs. He sleeps inside an MRI machine. And the ritual he chose to demonstrate love was sticking a needle full of his teenage son's blood into his own cheek.
So we're doing vampires today? Because that's the only lens where that sentence doesn't sound like a cry for help from a pod person.
We're doing the logical endpoint of vampires. See, every wellness trend, goop, sauna therapy, the $1,200 stress test at the Four Seasons, it all has a class marker. But Bryan Johnson isn't buying a jade egg. He's trying to extract the vitality of the young and inject it into himself. That's not wellness. That's a feudal tax on the blood supply.
Right, because the quote isn't, "I eat kale." The quote is, "I want to be a parasite on my own offspring." And we, as a culture, went, interesting, instead of arrest this man.
Exactly. That's the thesis of this episode. The biohacking industrial complex has given rich people the language to frame consumption as charity. I'm not exploiting my son. I'm protecting his genetic legacy. It's the same logic that lets a guy like Peter Thiel fund anti-aging research while also funding seasteading. Because if you can't fix the planet, you just escape it. And you take your son's blood with you.
So the pipeline goes, Goop sells you a $75 candle that smells like your vagina. You buy a red light mask. You start reading about peptide therapies. And suddenly you're in a Facebook group arguing that the poor have higher allostatic load. And maybe we should just filter them out.
Filter them out. That's the elevator pitch for eugenics, man. Optimization. Bio-optimization. It sounds so sterile. Meanwhile, in the current world events rundown, which I'm contractually obligated to read, we have the government pulling a classic Streisand. They tried to hide the data on whatever they tried to hide, and now the algorithm has put it on every phone in America.
The algorithm giveth, and the algorithm taketh away. Meanwhile, Dr. O's enshittification is officially in the dictionary. Congratulations.
We did it. We named the process by which every platform turns into a zombie that eats its own users. Tech bros on Hacker News are still arguing about zero-touch OAuth for MCP, while the economy is actively rotting. But don't worry. MIT nerds built a custom OS to study chips. Very cool. Extremely relevant to the blood drinking thing.
Let's not forget the astroturfing. Groundbreaking insight today. Corporations have been faking popularity since before you were born. I'm shocked. Shocked!
What does have to say about all this?
I think it's about intention. If you're going to consume the poor, you should at least use a BPA-free straw.
See? She gets it. The branding is the point. Bryan Johnson doesn't look like a ghoul because he calls it a plasma cascade protocol. He looks like a guy who does an Excel spreadsheet on his own mortality. But what he's actually doing is building the case that some lives are maintenance and other lives are fuel.
And that's where we are. From goop to eugenics in 3 easy payments of $19.99 per month. That's the show.
So we're talking about blood. Hacked blood. But you can't really talk about the current grift without the historical foundation. The Wellness-to-Fascism pipeline. It's a straight shot.
Right. And anyone who thinks wellness is this soft, apolitical, I just want to be healthy thing has never met a 19th century health nut. Let's start with the original grifter-in-chief, J.H. Kellogg, Battle Creek, Michigan. Cornflakes. You know why he invented them?
To stop you from touching yourself. That's the punchline. He thought masturbation caused cancer. He thought spicy food caused erections. So he invented a bland, gray flake of despair to kill the libido.
Exactly. The entire breakfast cereal industry is built on anti-sex panic. And that's the deep taproot of wellness. It's not about feeling good. It's about control. Control of the body, the appetites, the urges. The body is a leaky, sinful machine, and you have to seal it shut with bran.
And then we jump to Steve Jobs, fruitarian. Thought his diet would cure his cancer, wouldn't do surgery, drank carrot juice until he died. The man who built the most frictionless user interface in history couldn't deal with the friction of his own pancreas. That's the through line, the ultimate expression of control.
Right. And now we have Gwyneth Paltrow sticking a jade egg up her vagina to balance energy. Goop. The name itself is a confession. It's goop. It's the viscosity of a scam. But here's the thing. She's selling the idea that your body is broken, that it's a project you have to manage. Because if you just get the right $75 candle,
You'll be pure, but you'll never be pure. That's the point. The body is the last thing rich people can't buy. You have a Ferrari? Cool. You have a G5? Cool. But you still have to die. So if you can buy a protocol, a regime that makes you feel like you're cheating death, you'll pay anything. And that's where the control slips into something darker.
I think it's about intention. If I'm going to consume the poor, I should at least use a jade straw. Eretic jade.
See? She's getting it. But the real slide is this. If you believe your body is a project that requires constant optimization, you start to look at other bodies as failures. The fat person is lazy. The sick person didn't try hard enough. The poor person ate the wrong food.
and then you draw a line between the optimized and the unoptimized. And suddenly, you're not just talking about green smoothies. You're talking about eugenics. Some lives are maintenance and other lives are fuel. That's not a metaphor. That's the pitch.
That's the blood thing. The blood of the hacked. Young blood transfusions. Tech bros flying to secret clinics in Monterey to get plasma from 18-year-olds. Peter Thiel, Bryan Johnson. They don't want to live forever because they love life. They want to live forever because they hate death. And they hate it because it's the one thing they can't optimize.
And the startup world loves this because it's scalable. We're going to solve aging. It's the ultimate venture capital pitch. We're going to turn mortality into a recurring subscription. But what happens when the subscription runs out? What happens when the blood supply runs low? Who's the donor class?
We're the donor class. That's the quiet part. The wellness industry doesn't just want your money. It wants your belief that some lives are more worth maintaining than others. And once you believe that, you're 2 steps away from let's sterilize the poor, and 4 steps from let's gas the unoptimized.
I prefer to think of it as a very expensive, very exclusive recycling program.
That's the show. And we'll be right back after we sell you something that will definitely not make you live longer.
BetterHelp, Manscaped, The Grind.
The Grind is a nootropic compound designed to turn your prefrontal cortex into a server rack. Each capsule contains 200 milligrams of a substance that may, and I stress may, increase your tolerance for reading Slate Star Codex archives.
Oh, Christ.
The Grind CEO says, and I quote, "We don't just optimize your biology. We optimize your timeline to alpha." That's from the LinkedIn.
Alpha Timeline. He's 4 podcasts deep into Sam Harris's feed and thinks he's a Roman emperor.
I'm supposed to be selling this, but look at the ingredients. It's just caffeine, ashwagandha, and the desire to justify your purchase on Twitter.
You know that guy has a manifesto? Not like a mission statement, an actual manifesto with a subtitle.
I prefer my performance enhancers to come with a constitutional monarch and a slightly racist family crest. But to each their own, I suppose.
He's got 3,000 paying subscribers who think mitochondrial efficiency will protect them from having to talk to their therapist about their dad.
The code is GRIND20. Or maybe GRIND20 is the year this guy gets his dick removed by a bad batch of peptides. I don't know. We're back.
So we're going to talk about the $60 billion industry built on the premise that if you take a racetam, you might remember where you left your keys, but you'll definitely remember that you paid a premium for the color of the capsule.
The code is GRIND20, and the product is I feel like I'm in control of my life, which is a feeling that lasts about 45 minutes before you check Twitter and remember you're not.
Let's do the science first, because I'm a nerd, and also because it's fun to watch people get mad about it. Nootropics, or smart drugs, if you're a guy who wears a weighted blanket to bed, are supposed to boost cognition, memory, focus, executive function. The evidence base for 90% of them is we gave 10 rats some powder and they ran a maze slightly faster, and then we sold the powder to a guy in Austin for $80 a bottle.
But hold on. You're dismissing the placebo effect, which is real, measurable, and frankly, the most reliable effect in the entire supplement industry. If I take a pill that I believe will make me smarter, I will feel smarter. My confidence goes up, I type faster, I send emails I shouldn't. And I paid $80 for that feeling. Is that a scam? Or is that just retail?
That's a grift with a Harvard Business School thesis. The real drug being sold isn't paracetam or Nopept or whatever the fuck. It's the feeling of being optimized. The cultural promise that your biggest problem is a biochemical deficiency, not the fact that your boss expects you to output the work of 3 people for the salary of 1. You take a Nootropics stack, and suddenly you're not a cog. You're an upgraded cog. The upgrade is the product. The P is just the receipt.
Let's talk about the big ones, because I know you want to. Modafinil. That's the one that actually works, right? The limitless pill for people who have a prescription or a friend in medical school.
Modafinil is a Schedule IV controlled substance in the US for a reason. It promotes wakefulness. It keeps you from sleeping. Does it make you smarter? No, it makes you more awake. If you're awake, you can do more work. That's not a cognitive enhancement. That's a battery. And the come down is you feel like a battery that's been drained and then plugged into a different, worse outlet.
I tried modafinil once. I spent 7 hours alphabetizing my wine collection and then wrote a very long email to my accountant about the tax implications of my feelings. It was productive, in the sense that a car crash is a rearrangement of matter.
That's the thing. You're not smarter. You're just more. More focused on the wrong thing. More anxious about the email you just sent. More convinced that you're on the verge of a breakthrough that will never come.
Then you've got the racetams. Paracetam, aniracetam, oxiracetam, which sound like a Transformers rejected names. The evidence is weak. Some studies show modest benefits in elderly patients with cognitive decline. For a healthy 28-year-old tech bro who's worried his brain isn't fast enough to make his startup not fail, essentially 0. But the narrative is strong.
You are a machine. You are a machine that is currently underperforming. Buy this lubricant. Buy this firmware update. Buy this proprietary blend of things that sound like chemicals but are actually just expensive dirt. And that narrative extends to microdosing.
Microdosing. Oh God, the generative AI of drug culture. Everyone's heard about it, no one agrees on the dose, and the only studies are like, we gave 14 people LSD every other day, and they said they felt more creative, but also they painted a lot of squiggly lines.
But again, the placebo effect. If you believe taking a tenth of a tab of acid will make you more creative, you will try harder to be creative. You will take more walks. You will journal. You will feel like a protagonist. And that feeling is the product. The drug is just the key that unlocks the door you were already standing in front of.
Unlock your potential. The most expensive sentence in the English language. And the entire industry is built on the premise that your natural state is deficiency. You're not tired. You have suboptimal mitochondrial function. You're not distractible. You have an imbalance in your cholinergic system. You're not just a person who doesn't want to work. You're a person who needs to optimize.
This is where the political part comes in. Because this isn't just a consumer choice, it's a moral framework. Productivity as morality. The idea that not being maximally efficient is a personal failing, and that the solution is purchasing the right inputs.
The Wellness-to-Fascism pipeline in the title isn't a joke. It's a direct line from, I need to biohack my brain, to, I need to purify my genetics, to, I need to make sure the 5G waves aren't suppressing my alpha rhythms. It's the same desire for control, the same contempt for the flawed, messy human body, the same search for a clean, optimized, pure version of yourself.
And the grift escalates. You start with caffeine and L-theanine. Then you're buying Modafinil from a stranger on Reddit. Then you're getting a prescription for an off-label medication from a telehealth doctor who's never seen your face. Then you're injecting peptides. Then you're in a group chat with a guy who calls himself Wolf of the Fifth Epoch, and he's talking about stem cell therapy in Tijuana.
I prefer my performance enhancers to come with a constitutional monarch and a slightly racist family crest. But to each their own, I suppose.
He's got 3,000 paying subscribers who think mitochondrial efficiency will protect them from having to talk to their therapist about their dad.
The code is GRIND20. Or maybe GRIND20 is the year this guy gets his dick removed by a bad batch of peptides. I don't know. We're back.
Peter Thiel wants to live forever. Bryan Johnson wants to be a teenager again. What do these two men have in common?
They've never been told no. Not once. Not by a woman, not by a board, not by the normal human consequence of being a weird little freak in a room full of people who can see you. Thiel literally tried to buy young blood transfusions. He had his veins hooked up to a teenager like he was a 1995 Camry getting a jump start.
And Johnson, the guy who looks like an animatronic from a failing Chuck E. Cheese, is out here measuring his nocturnal erections for a spreadsheet that goes to his investors. This is the blueprint. It's a 90-page protocol. He eats exactly 1,950 calories of gray paste. He has a team of 30 people optimizing his bowel movements.
Here's the thing. I don't actually care that they're doing this. I care that they've convinced a generation of men that death is a bug report, that aging is a software issue, that if you just take the right peptides and sleep in a magnetic field, you can bypass the entire human condition.
The Silicon Valley obsession with death as an engineering problem.
It's a spiritual crisis, dressed up in lab coats. They can't die because they haven't finished their mission. They haven't disrupted death yet. But the real reason Thiel wants to live forever is that he's terrified that the moment he stops talking, everyone realizes he was never saying anything.
I hate how much I agree with that. The desire for immortality is actually a fear of irrelevance. If you die, people stop talking about you. And for these guys, silence is the only hell that exists. But I'll push back a little. There's a genuine philosophical through line here. We've spent 200 years extending lifespan through sanitation, antibiotics, vaccines. Why is it suddenly gross when a billionaire does it with blood bags instead of penicillin?
Because penicillin saved my grandmother's life, Thiel's blood transfusions saved his Q score on a podcast circuit. One is medicine. The other is a fetish. There's a difference between I don't want to die of diphtheria and I want to live long enough to see my political enemies buried.
Speaking of fetishes, soundboard, you're 150 years old. What do you make of the immortality crew?
I've been dead for decades, darling. The secret isn't the blood. It's the tax shelter. Thiel's Roth IRA is worth $5 billion. That's the real longevity protocol. You don't need young blood if you have young money.
He's not wrong. The Roth IRA is the most effective anti-aging technology ever invented. You die with $1 billion, you never really die. You just haunt the economy.
But this leads to the worst part, the downstream effect. You've got guys in their 20s buying mitochondrial optimizer supplements. They're spending $500 a month on nootropics and red light therapy. They're terrified of turning 30 because they've internalized the idea that their window for relevance is closing, that if they're not a billionaire by 28, they might as well be dead.
And they're peeing it all out. The $500 pee. We covered that. But the deeper point is this entire wellness-to-fascism pipeline, it's real. You start with, I want to optimize my morning routine. You end with, I want to seize the means of biological reproduction. There's a direct line from biohacking to eugenics.
That's a jump.
Is it? Thiel literally funded a lawsuit to destroy a journalism site because they wrote about him. Johnson fired his entire team and then replaced them. Control, optimization, elimination of variables. First, it's your diet. Then, it's your employees. Then, it's your democracy.
Yeah, okay, I walked into that. But let me say this. The reason it works as a grift is because it's selling a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. You don't need to live forever. You need to feel like you matter. And you can't buy that. You have to earn it.
Which is why the next segment is going to be fun. Because when we come back, we're going to talk about how this gets worse. It gets worse. The dark side of the optimization impulse. The part where the computers start optimizing us back.
Great. Something to look forward to.
When we come back, we're going to talk about how this gets worse. Because it gets worse. All right, welcome back. You're listening to the part of the show where my soul exits my body and a copywriter takes the wheel. Let's go.
Oh, God. He's got the energy of a man who just snorted a bag of nootropics and forgot to drink water.
First sponsor, Squarespace. You know what it is. You don't need another website builder. You need a presence. Or whatever. Use code BLOODMONEY for 10% off your first purchase. I have built 3 websites on Squarespace. One of them was for my mother's knitting circle. It looked fantastic. The other 2 were for fictional consulting firms I started during a depressive episode. All 3 were a joy to build.
A joy to build.
A joy to build. One day, my digital ghost town of a consulting firm will rank on Google. I just need more SEO, which Squarespace has.
You are not well. Next sponsor, please, before he starts crying.
Liquid Death. The water that tastes like rebellion. It's water in a can that looks like a Monster energy drink for people who wear Patagonia to the office. It's for men who want to drink water but can't handle the emasculation of a clear plastic bottle. It's for those of us who think hydration is a personality. And you know what? I support it. I want my water to look like a threat.
I saw a guy chugging one of those at a child's birthday party last week. He was wearing wraparound sunglasses. We have to talk about the choices he's made.
He's making choices. He's on the path. The dark path toward his third sponsor.
No. You know what? I'm muting this.
Too late. Another grift. Our third sponsor. We were going to call them something else, but legal said no. So, another grift. It's a service. It's a lifestyle. It's a credit card that charges you every time you feel incomplete. You give them your wallet, they give you a sticker that says disruptor. They take your data, they profile your anxiety, they sell you a membership to a club that doesn't exist. And you know what? It works. I signed up. I'm their CEO now. I don't know how, I just woke up in a boardroom.
I am physically pressing a button to cut the audio.
You know these ads pay our rent, right?
Unfortunately.
So I have to do this. I have to believe in the liquid death lifestyle.
Do you believe that, or are you just reading the copy?
I'm reading the copy, but I'm reading it authentically.
That's called acting, and you're bad at it. Let me ask the real experts. Soundboard, you there?
I once drank water from a glacier in Patagonia. It tasted of existential dread and capitalism. Your liquid death is a carnival trick. A beautiful, hollow carnival trick. I respect it.
Thank you, Werner.
I hate this podcast. We're going to break. For real. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the computers optimize us. And it gets worse. It gets so much worse.
All right, we're back. We just heard from a man who drank glacier water and made us all feel stupid. Now we have to talk about the actual endpoint of all this nonsense. And it's not a six-pack, it's not a sharper memory. It's a caste system.
Oh, we're going full dystopia? Good. I was getting tired of the grift stuff.
The thesis is simple. It's not a fucking conspiracy. It's a pipeline. Step 1, I want to optimize my health. Innocent. Fine. Step 2, I deserve to live longer than the average person because I put in the work. Step 3, your blood, which you didn't optimize, should probably go to me now.
You're going to trigger the Peter Thiel stance. They're going to say it's just about health sovereignty or some shit.
Good. Let them. Because the history is already written. You want receipts? The wellness movement in this country has always run parallel to eugenics. Like, physically adjacent. The early 20th century Better Babies contests at state fairs, that wasn't just about healthy kids. That was about racial hygiene with a ribbon.
People forget that the Nazis literally studied American eugenics laws. California sterilized more people than Germany did before the war. And the language, fitter families, clean blood, that's just the 1910s version of biohacking.
Right. And now we have tech bros in San Francisco doing blood boy transfusions. That's not a joke. That happened. They literally connected their veins to younger people. And the justification? I'm trying to cure aging. No, you're trying to cure dying. And you're fine with someone else paying the metabolic tax.
This is where the rationalist community gets dark. The effective altruism guys, the long-termists, they have this language of quality-adjusted life years. And suddenly, you're not a person. You're a unit of potential blood or a brain that could host a superior consciousness. I read a fucking blog post from a rationalist guy in Berkeley who seriously argued that if you have an IQ under 120, you might be net negative in a post-scarcity society. Like, honest to God.
The end point of biohacking isn't immortality. It's feudalism with better skin. Think about it. If the longevity science actually works, If we crack the code on cellular senescence, who gets the first dose? Not the guy in Flint, Michigan. Not the single mom in rural West Virginia. The guy who can afford a $50,000 annual protocol. And then his kids get it. And their kids.
And the life expectancy gap is already growing. We don't even need to speculate. The top 1% of earners live like 15 years longer than the bottom 1%. That's not a health problem. That's a structural reality. And the rich are getting access to stuff that isn't even FDA approved yet. Rapamycin, metformin, NAD+ strips, experimental gene therapies in the Bahamas.
So the question isn't, can we live forever? It's, who gets to?
Can we ask the ghost in the machine? Soundboard celeb, you've seen some shit. Where does this end?
I once filmed a man in a basement in Texas who believed he could upload his consciousness to a server farm. He had a tattoo of a hard drive on his neck. He died of a heart attack at 41. His server farm was a Dell desktop. The ambition was enormous. The hardware was pathetic.
Jesus.
So we're just building a world where the rich become biological nobles and the rest of us are serfs with Apple Watches?
Exactly. And the worst part? The serfs will pay for the Apple Watch. They'll buy the nootropics, they'll donate blood to the longevity clinic because they believe they're investing in the future. But the future isn't for them.
It's the wellness version of the enshittification cycle. You start with a promise of optimization. You end with a caste system.
And the government tries to hide the data on longevity inequality? Classic Streisand effect. Now everyone's looking. And they're finding out that the rich are literally trying to drink the poor.
They're not trying. They're doing it. They're just calling it therapy.
All right. Look, we've spent an hour making fun of people who drink their own blood for eternal life, which is fun, but here's the part where I get briefly real with you. You are going to die. I am going to die. That Thiel ghoul in his magnesium tank is going to die.
Eventually. Give or take a few decades of borrowed time and harvested plasma.
Right. And the reason all this shit is so pervasive, the nootropics, the blood boy stuff, the obsession with biometrics, is that people are terrified of that fact. They're terrified of the void. And instead of processing that fear, they try to buy their way out of it.
It's pathetic, yeah, but also on a structural level, dangerous. Because that fear is now being monetized into a literal caste system. You can't buy your way out of dying. You can only buy your way into delusion.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Death is what gives life meaning. If you lived forever, nothing would matter. No stakes, no urgency. You'd just be doom scrolling for eternity.
I actually think the healthiest thing you can do is just accept that you're going to die. Not in a nihilistic way. In a, okay, this is finite, so I should probably do something worthwhile way.
And maybe also go outside sometimes.
Revolutionary concept. Touch grass. Breathe air. Accept mortality.
But here's my final thought, and I mean this genuinely. The best biohack? The single most effective intervention for human longevity? It's not a peptide. It's not a hyperbaric chamber.
Don't say it.
A functioning social safety net.
God, he went full commie.
I'm not full commie. I'm full, if you have healthcare, you live longer. That's not politics. That's epidemiology. The Streisand effect showed us the data. Rich people live longer. But the fix isn't making everyone rich. It's making the baseline not suck.
It's true, though. Japan's trains still run. Their old people live forever. And they didn't do it with Benjamin Button bullshit. They did it with community and universal care.
Boring answer. doesn't sell supplements, doesn't get you on Joe Rogan.
But it keeps you alive. So,
All right, that's the show. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to die eventually.
and don't trust anyone who tells you they've figured out how to avoid it.
Especially if they're selling you a course.